The difference between hairdressing and barbering is like, a lot of people think like it's using scissors, it's doing the sections and that was my opinion. So it really was. And it wasn't until I sort of got going in with that I realised that it's more, my humble opinion, is that it didn't have the service levels certainly of what the hairdressers have. And like 20 years forward, I think the two have merged quite nicely. Yeah. If you want to learn and grow and get your business going, you ain't going to do it just by looking at like how many people section 15 different ways. You've got to look at these different shops, what have made it on a fuck all budget, and what can you do to copy it, and read some books and do some audio books and do that, go about that way, and that's what changes it.
What's the difference between a manager and a consultant?
Not really getting told what to do anymore by the big man.
Welcome to The Noble Barber. This is a podcast for barbers by barbers, cutting through the crap of the industry. We all want to know how our businesses can run better. I want to talk to people who've done it, messed it up and got it right second time round, and can tell us the way that you and I can make our businesses better. Hiya, welcome to the latest edition of The Noble Barber podcast. I'm here with Dan Davies. Hello, mate. Who's our first returner to the podcast.
Yes.
Made such an impression last time, mate.
I've got to respond to all the comments and the floods of emails. What you've had.
I thought we'd give you a chance to kind of respond. But last time we spoke about education, which was really interesting. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And now I guess we want to talk a little bit more about, your rise of your career and where you went, and also how that can affect others. And kind of move away from just cutting your clients behind your chair and, running.
I suppose what you should do with your education in the main port, isn't it? And when we spoke about sort of how to go about this, sort of got me very much reminiscing about sort of like, if you had that time machine, what would you do? Would you go that way? Would you do this way? And I think it's a really important thing. Like at the very beginning of a barber's career, the main intention is that we want to be the best, most skilled barber going. We want to learn and develop. And you would have had this in your barber shops. I certainly had it in the ones I ran, where the people coming, they just say, "Well, what's your reason for joining?" And say, "I just want to grow." And you hear it so often. I want to grow. Well, what do you want to grow to? And that's sort of what I thought would be quite a good little topic to sort of go about. And obviously, you've owned shops. I've ran shops and gone in a few different directions and stuff like that. So I just think it's a good poignant thing to remind people of what we can do to help.
Was your move, your first move from into kind of being manager?
Yeah.
Was that purposeful? Was it accidental? Was it a new company? Did you apply somewhere else?
Well, what happened with me is I went into hairdressing to start with, and it wasn't like this. Back when I went into barbering, it wasn't a cool thing where everyone was doing it. I fell into it. I was doing hairdressing to meet girls, and then after that,
all the best reasons.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'll be honest, I've always have done. And then I went into barbering because a mate of mine, his hands got bad. Said, "Dan, come along, have a look at this." So went and joined in there, and it was the busiest shop in the town. It had a real big reputation, and I had a huge ego. I thought I could like walk into this and smash it. Oh crap! Oh, really bad. The difference between hairdressing and barbering is like, a lot of people think like it's using scissors, it's doing the sections and that was my opinion. So it really was, and it wasn't until I sort of got going in with that I realised that it's more and like an add. But the thing what barbering didn't have back then, in my humble opinion, is that it didn't have the service levels certainly of what the hairdressers have. And like 20 years forward, I think the two have merged quite nicely. Yeah. But basically, I was working in a shop there, learned a lot off the guys who I worked with there, and kind of it fell into when he went on holiday, I ran the shop for a little bit, and then I wanted more, but didn't really know what I wanted. I was very, very safe where I was. I was earning well, getting a good little cut. Didn't really need for anything. But my partner, she was from down this way, from Surrey. And so like she hated up where I was, didn't want to settle there. So I had to move. And so I came down this way. And I think when a man's got ambition, I think that's when they're at the most effective. because it's like, okay, well, I want to come down here and I want to, and I knew I was good back then. I've been barbering for a good amount of time then. I'd learnt a lot. I was good at hairdressing. I've been barbering then for 10 years, and I was ready to do something. But what I wish I had is just a bit of a thought of like, well, what do I want to get out of this? Because at those times it was like, well, go and run a shop or go and manage somewhere and things like that. And then sort of hindsight, like, should I have bought a shop? Should I have gone into training? Should I have gone into different things? So it was always, I suppose you follow roles what have been led before you by parents and stuff. My dad, he built his way up, sort of started at the bottom, worked till he ran the company. And that's basically what I mimicked with what I was doing at any company I was with. And yeah, that led me to opportunities I never waited for an opportunity. I always grabbed it. You know, I sort of made one for himself. So when I went into the shop in London where I first started, there was one person who'd been cutting hair less time than me. The rest of them had been cutting hair for years and had a huge clientele. But it gave me time to think about, well, okay, this shop's good, but how do you make it epic? How do you make it? I've always strived to be the Real Madrid. Real Madrid, no matter if you like them or hate them or whatever, they're always the beacon of the best. And like, what can you do to be the Real Madrid? What can you do to be the Pele? What can you do to be the top dog? And so it gave me time to have a look at it. And then I just used to go to the owner, and I probably did his head in, to be honest, mate. Like, we should be doing this, we should be doing this. And some of the ideas, mate, were rubbish. We're like, when I look back at them, we're like, this is the worst shit I could have ever thought of. But like, I just needed something to do and think and get going. And like,
I mean, that's the thing. You didn't really. It wasn't that you had this kind of career trajectory or path.
No.
But there was just some noise in you, kind of going, actually, I want a bit more. I want to do something more. That was pulling you along. That you kind of went, I've got to try and do this. You wanted more.
Well, I love money. I really, everyone does, you know, but I really like it. I like having a few quid in my pocket. I don't want to wait for anything. I don't want to have to save for anything. I like having a good bit of dough. And like, I've always, I work hard. I've always grafted. I've always done the things. That's never been a problem. But sort of working smart has been the different one. So like, should I just be banging out God knows how many haircuts a day? Should I be looking at sort of seeing what a company's doing and doing that? I do a lot of consultancy now and things like that, and that's more of what my skill set is now. But it was a case of like, how do I get money out of this industry? So, and my way was sort of, I had to listen to the owners and do those things and do management, and I was sort of middle management, which is really hard because you've got to keep the owners happy, you've got to keep the workers happy, and then somewhere along the line you've got to be happy. Three don't often happen, to be honest. It's a hard thing.
And how long down this path were you before you felt that you were managing with your skill set rather than kind of being told or directed by your boss or your owner?
Quite early, to be honest, because a lot of the stuff what he was saying was absolute shit. It was just because I've always had a rule.
And did you cope? But could you cope with not telling him that, or
you find a way? You know, you find a way. There's always a way. But I'm not prepared to ask anyone to do something I'm not going to do myself.
Right.
And I think if you are doing that, and you need to have a bit of a word. But like, it's like often with anything. So like, if someone gives you, everybody wants to fly to the moon, but how are you going to do it? So like, I mean, he's going to. You'll get something from the owner. It'll be like, okay, well, I want us to be here. I want us to be we want to make this money. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so, okay, well, what's the timeline? What do you want to do? How realistic is that? And so you've got to manage everyone's expectations. That's the whole point of management. So like, okay, what you're saying, okay, if I was to give an idea and say I wanted to do this, you would manage my expectation. I've got to manage yours or give feedback to it. And somewhere you find that middle ground. And like, a lot of the times you're getting asked to do stuff what you really wouldn't want to do if you own a shop, but because you've got that middle management role, who's someone who can get Dan to do it. It's not on me then.
So that's the difficult
that's
first
the hard
stage of
one.
management is that it's get the manager to do it.
Yeah,
You know.
and it sucks. It really does. There's no good way about that. So all these crap jobs, what you just didn't want to do yourself. Yeah.
And you've run more. I think your career is certainly not just managing. I mean, you've been involved at a very early stage with some amazing brands that to be fair, I think your part in making them amazing isn't something that should be undersold.
No. Yeah.
But do you class that as management, or was that as you moved into places with more than one store? What was your role? How did you see that change?
Following a brief. I mean, like everyone's got a huge goal. Like, I mean, I put my personal opinion. This is only mine. Is that like I think your main goal should be completely unachievable. Like it should be head in the clouds, absolute bonkers. People should look at you with a bit of a funny look in their eye when you tell them what your main dream is.
Yep.
But there is ways of making it happen with small runs on the ladder. So like when I've taken these roles on in various different places, well, what is the aim? What is the ultimate thing, what you want? And some of them have got very small things. Okay, I want, out of these 40 shots we've got, 20 are profitable, 20 aren't. We want to make these 20 profitable. Okay, how do we do that? We break down small bits of ladder and look at different bits to do it. The best one I did was like, I want to build a global brand. It's like, yeah, I can get behind that. That's like, because no one's really got a global brand in barbering. I know a lot of people think they have and think they're like the best thing, but there isn't. There isn't like a Nestle of barbers. There isn't like a Heinz or anything like that. There is with hairdressing maybe, like Utonian guys and stuff. I think with barbering, it's just more smaller independent things, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that answers what you're...
Yeah, but a big difference between, so, your first store, you were that kind of middle management in a single shop, presumably. And then the next move was to one of the larger brands that had more than one store?
Yeah, well, it started as one, and he said he want to build a global brand. So when I left there just before, during the lockdown, it was 6 shops in London, 1 in New York, 1 in Birmingham. Lots of really cool people met, mostly good memories, some terrible ones. But yeah, it's like that was probably the biggest
and
one.
Most of your learning happened there?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And you were supported in that learning, or it was just kind of,
no,
just realising you're in deep water and working out how to get to shore?
No, I think in the 10 years I was put on one course, which was great. That was a free one from a fantastic hairdresser, so he's got his plug.
Excellent.
But no, like you create your own, and now with things like this is on YouTube and LinkedIn Learning and all these sorts of things. Now I already knew I could cut hair, and like you can learn different ways to cut hair and different ways to fade or do whatever. But once you've done a few different techniques and you've got people coming back to you, do you really need to learn more? I don't know. It's debatable.
Yeah.
You think you should keep your skills fresh. But what I needed to do is like, okay, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to copy from Oliver Sweeney shoes? What do I need to copy from Marvel? What do I need to copy from there? And so I picked up the phone and asked them, like, do you want to do something? So Oliver Sweeney was a great shoe brand, and they were really getting in with stuff. And we had just said to them, we have the same demographic of customers. Our clients wear your shoes. Your clients are getting like their haircut with me. What can we do to work together? And from there, it's not just like a marketing thing. It's just you're learning from them. You're sort of like, well, let's talk to the marketing department. Let's take them for a coffee. What works? What doesn't work? What marketing things have... You see some of these marketing campaigns, what they do, and they look epic, and they turn out to be crap. So how do you not do the same things? We did a lot of things with theatre companies and stuff, and then I would get the actors in from the production, we'd cut their hair and ask them, well, how do you grow your following? What do you do with this? What do you do with that? And their stuff would be free, and they would be talking about it and publicising us. And so, I always had a budget of around nothing. So, you just, when you've got fuck all budget, you've got to be creative.
Yeah.
So, because all of our budget was going into internet and building all that sort of thing up, where sort of all the stuff what I wanted to do was getting people to stop. and that was it really. What can I do to collaborate with people? The best collaboration I did, one of them was with a pet food company, and they gave me a load of dog bowls because I wanted people to stop in front of the window and look in, and like, how do I do this? Because we're putting all these different things up, and I saw it outside of window. This old dog was walking away, and he stopped to lick the water. I'm having that, and so all the shops had dog bowls outside of them, and do it with those sorts of things. But that was it really. It's sort of like allowing yourself to learn from other industries, other things to do, because your producer said earlier on, like with education and stuff, and that people are more or less in the same boat, and everyone wants the industry to be good and doing things like that, but it's all much the same what you get from these courses. There's only so many ways to fade or do things, or do, if you go to the right people in the first point and that, you're great. But like, if you want to learn and grow and get your business going, you ain't going to do it just by looking at like how many people section 15 different ways. You've got to look at these different shops, what have made it on a fuck all budget, and what can you do to copy it, and like read some books and do some audio books and do that, go about that way, and that's what changes it.
And the other side, obviously, of that, it's great that you managed to have that kind of influence to kind of, create, which is a high of management, and I think, all my thoughts when I think of, myself in my management hat are those bits.
Yeah.
Bigger bit is the day-to-day and the staff and the team.
Yeah.
And give it to Dan.
Yeah.
How, was that naturally something good for you, or did you feel you had to learn it, or did you have to learn from your mistakes?
Luckily, I'm quite structured. Like, although I say that, there's many people who'll be laughing at me saying I'm structured. I have a way. So, like, we've touched on it on my last fantastic interview, which I'm sure is available for people to download now.
It's definitely there.
But it's like the pyramid. So, like, if you're focusing on the top thing, like you're posting on social media. For example, right, if you were just focusing on this podcast right now, what would happen to your shops?
Yeah, no,
you wouldn't know.
No,
you wouldn't know. You wouldn't have a clue. And you've got to have that base sorted. So in order for me to sort of be able to concentrate on, okay, what's, like I would use Oliver Sweeney again or Marvel, what are they doing? In order for me to look at that, I have to make sure that everything's sweet on the floor. And so, like, is the shop open? Have I got the right people? Have I got the right recruits in? Is all that done? And like, a lot of it is eat, sleep, repeat, and making sure that that's all sweet and that's all cool. And then maybe just dedicating a day and a half or like to those sorts of things. One of the main things in order to be able to do it as well is you can't be cutting hair and doing that. You'll mess yourself up. You got to take, okay, and what I eventually did is I stepped back day by day because I had quite a big clientele that needed to pass it on to other people and look after people who've looked after me. So like you would sort of scale it down a little bit and do it that way. While still sort of like, I never wanted to not stop cutting hair because I think when you do that, you lose a connection from your team and your clients. And the best way of, it makes me laugh now when you see people will get, like we've touched on consultancy before, where people will get marketing consultancy and stuff like that. Try talking to a customer. Try actually being in shop, talking to a customer, having a proper conversation. What isn't about yourself? What are you up to? What you're doing? And listening to people. And that's how you grow. That's how you see the trends.
So there was a point that you moved from manager into consultancy.
Yeah.
Which were hugely large company. What's the difference between a manager and a consultant?
I'm not really getting told what to do anymore by the big man. So I suppose we're going into consultancy. That's more of a self-employed thing. So you remember when we were back at school not so long ago, right? You get your design project, and the thing with a design project is you always got a problem. Yeah, and everything in design is solved by looking at the problem, doing the research, breaking it down, and doing it that way. And I know that sounds really basic, but that's what I do with the consultancy. So, like, go in there and say, if I could wave magic wand, what would you want to make better, right? And sometimes people say a dozen things, sometimes people say one or two, but like it's looking at, break it all down. Let's focus on the things what we need to get right first. Okay. The main problem people have in barbering and hairdressing and everything is recruiting. But that's the one that comes most constant and most consistent. So it's looking at, okay, well, there was a brand where we had a huge amount of people, of shops, spread across the UK. And it's okay, well, what do we need to do in order to get staff? Well, first of all, you're posting in on Indeed, right? How many barbers really look at Indeed? And if they are looking at them, are they the right people?
Good people, yeah.
So like usually get salon hoppers, people who've been working at somewhere for a couple of weeks or want more money, boss, or that sort of thing, and they move on, and they're just no point to them. But what I did was created, okay, well, what are people actually picking up and reading? 9 times out of 10, when people are doing things when they're waiting in the waiting room, they're looking at the blower. So we did a social media campaign with getting recruiting in, and that got, I think we got over the UK 2,000 barbers want to get information about the company.
Wow.
So like, and that costs less than an Indeed campaign.
Yeah.
So like, there's ways of doing it, but if you're just going to copy the same thing what people are doing all the time, then you're going to fail. So like, we looked at their whole recruiting policy. Like we did an induction thing, even to the point of when you apply and when you look at it, what do you get? What's your first impression? Because when someone first joins the company, that's those first 3 weeks or so, that's the most important one. If
proper
they feel
bedding in period. Yeah.
Well, if they feel welcomed, they feel like they're going to do well, they're going to progress, that they've got a chance to learn and give, and I suppose most importantly, earn money, then they're going to stay with you. But like if you can't be asked and you just stick them next to Gary, he's a good barber, he'll be able to sort them out. Gary's bothered about earning his money.
Yeah.
So like it's having that sort of separation, having your systems in place.
Yeah.
So what is the system of recruiting from putting your advert out to the point where they're sort of like you're giving them reviews and you're having a look at them and you're doing that. It's got to be right with there.
Yeah.
And that's what they didn't have. Most shops, if they're being honest with themselves, they stick an advert out or they stick a story up on social media and expect fucking Josh LaMonica to turn up. It ain't going to happen.
No.
You know, you got to work the right way in order to get it.
Yeah.
And so it's it's different things, like different people will want different things with the consultancy. But the good thing about it is that like I can hand on heart say that all the ones I've done and had a thing with, I've got a good relationship with what goes now.
Yeah.
Still have a chat with them and stuff, and it works really, really well.
So if we go back to behind the chair, really today we're looking at how if you're barbering behind the chair, what's the next move for you if you want to manage?
I think that's down to the person. I mean, like with me, I'm an overthinker. I'm creative. I do a lot of things. So like do you know when you're cutting people's hair and like some people will be able to relate to this, some people won't. If you're cutting people's hair and you might be doing a good job, but your mind starts thinking on other things like, oh, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Then that's when you really need to have a bit of a think and like, do I need to, what else could I be doing within my career? Like not everyone can be a shop owner. Not everyone can be a trainer. Not everyone can be a manager. Like there was people who worked for me who were brilliant barbers and said, I want to go into management. And they would make the worst manager in the world. You know, that you may as well, it wouldn't happen. But they would make a great teacher. They would make a great, they might be very organised. They might be good at helping you with the stock or doing things like that. So like people tie barbering, because barbering's an all-in-one thing, so they tie management as all-in-one or marketing as all-in-one. And I think, like I said, we'll look at other industries. What do they do? What are their skill sets? What could you do with that? Because what we do is quite phenomenal as barbers. There's a lot of skills what are involved with it. Like I developed the pop-ups from what I did, and I do a lot of corporate pop-ups with it. So I decided not to look at industry pop-ups, which I know a lot of people like to do, and go to various different things and show other barbers and things what they're doing, thinking that there's going to be this massive pot of gold in education where there isn't. I much prefer to do like a corporate thing. So like I'll be the MasterCard barbers, I'll be the UEFA barbers, I'll be the WWE barbers. And I didn't care about a brand name or anything like that. I didn't really ever take many photos of it because a lot of that is a big thing of it. It was like I was lucky enough to do some work with Channel 4 and in the green room beforehand. And I got lucky with this. One of the people there was saying, well, what do you like going to the barbers? I love going to the barbers, but I hate having these pictures taken afterwards. And would you have a selfie with it? And do you just want my hair cut? That got me thinking, like, I can't go into this sort of like a fanboy or something like that. You just got to treat and say, just bring all the chat back to football. You're just talking that. And that's what got me a good loyal clientele of good high profile people. But
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's very true. It always used to be the idea of the manager ended up get the busiest person in the shop and they're the manager.
Yeah.
And if they're not that type of person, there's no point. But
it goes terribly wrong.
Really wrong. And then you end up with a really, really unhappy barber or hairdresser. I mean, starting this has made me really realise how many branches there are off of our industry tree. To choose and to play with, that you don't have to go behind the chair manager, that there's that management run. Some people are great here. I'm really lucky. I've got lovely people that work with us and, great managers who are really applied for it. And you can see they've got that kind of organised mind. They like things set out. They're very controlled about how everything's done. They're creative alongside. I've got lovely people. I'm really, really lucky. But that's not always the case.
No.
You can end up manager by default.
Yeah.
Now, if you end up manager by default, the feeling is that you're screwed. You know what I mean? Oh, I was a really good barber. I'm a terrible manager. I've just got, that defeat, which shouldn't be the case, really.
I think if you're in that spot, you need to really think about whether you're in the right place or not, to be honest. Like, there's a huge difference between owning your own shop and managing someone else's. Yeah, because if you're managing someone else's, or that creativity, what you've got, and you want to sort of say, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. If you've got an owner who don't want to do that, then you're knackered. So, like, I think that's one of the things where when you start out or when you have a plan, you always have it in an interview. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? Well, do you know what? Maybe ask yourself that question every now and again. What is your goal? So if you're training to do this after you've done a different job and you're going into barbering, what's your end goal? Like, a lot of people want their own shop, and that is probably about one of the better ways to go, to be honest. But like, what do you want your shop to be? And not talking about there's function over form. So like, I did some consultancy for a shop, and they were lovely people, and like the shop looked brilliant. But you had to be a giraffe to work in it. Like the necks were up here, the units were down there, and like it was like something out of Willy Wonka. It were madness. You think like, well, that's it in a nutshell, So like, what is needed? What do you need to do? What's the function over the form? What do you need to do? And that's the same with your career. So like, what are you good at? Be realistic with yourself. And if you haven't got that skill set, there is so many ways of learning it. Like I didn't just wake up in the morning and be good at something. You've got to work at it. You got to use the Lampard approach a little bit and just do your thing and crack on with it.
I've owned stores now for, I think it's 35 years next year.
Yeah.
And so many mistakes along the way. And I do think, it's okay to get things wrong as long as you're learning from it. Getting things wrong repeatedly is just stupid.
Yeah.
And equally, sometimes there's just not the course out there. I think I've had lots of conversation over the decades of, I'm looking for wanting this sort of course. And it's like, some things don't exist. Some things do have to come from, you kind of sniffing the grass and seeing what you think's going on.
You've got to get yourself out there.
And your barometer, trying to gauge your barometer about things.
100%. So like, what you're trying to achieve, if there isn't a course in it to be able to do something like that, which there often isn't, how can you achieve it? That's what I said about with the partnerships. A great partnership what I did was with, what are they called? There's a darts company. I forgot the name of them, which is terrible of me. But like, I was watching the darts and like look and seeing like, you remember when when I was a boy, the darts was in a dark, smoky, crap room, and like you just have Jockey Wilson there having a pint and chucking a load of arrows, and now it's this mega star phenomenon. It's like huge. So like, how do I blow up like that? So I got in touch with some of these dart companies and say, well, you got the World Championships at Ali Pali. We're more than happy to like invite the darts players down, so they're looking fresh for there. Love to have a chat with someone there in your marketing team or something about what we can do to work together. Yeah. And like, it's from there, you get the opportunity. I've gave them something, I gave them a load, and like you get time back off them. And it's great to get tickets to go to the darts, but I wasn't bothered about that. I wanted to know what they did in order to get to there. Yeah. And that's how you can't just. No one's going to knock on your door and say, you can sometimes get a bit lucky, and someone will do that once you've done a bit. But 9 times out of 10, no one's going to knock on your door and say, oh, come and do this course. Right. It's going to make you great at that. You've got to create the opportunity yourself.
Yeah, instant success tends to come from a lot of hard work.
Yeah, you've got to put the time in. You've got to put the thing in. What's your weakness? Make it your strength. And I'm not just talking about, okay, you can't taper very well, so like go on Buzz and have a look at those things and do that. It's a case of like, okay, I can't do this skill. I'm not very good at this skill. Who's got a load of shops? Who's got a slick checkout procedure? Who's got who's got happy staff? What are they doing to do that? Look at it. What can I take from there to implement there? I can do it.
Nick it. Yeah.
Like all of the best ideas aren't original ideas. They're ideas what someone else has seen, and they've tweaked it a little bit to make it fit what they've got, and it works. Yeah. We got to this years now with like, who's going to create something original? We recycle a lot of things most of the time. Certainly with trends that happens.
Have you been to that point though where overseeing half a dozen shops and more, that you presumably had a set of managers that you managed?
Yeah. So I would.
How's that?
Better.
Because that feels more like an owner's job, that an owner ends up generally managing his managers.
I think once you establish yourself, and once you get going with it, and once you're rocking with it, and you earn their trust a bit, they give you a little bit more responsibility, and like they'll move away a little bit and hopefully count the money and leave you to it. So in order to succeed, everyone's got to succeed, like, so I would ask people, I'd take them for tea and toast and say, well, what are we doing? What's the crack? What do you want to get out of this? Like, some people.
Did you find your managers that were all existing, or did you have to bring in?
The ones what we brought in tended to be harder work than the people what had worked with me for some time. Like I said, I didn't like having the title of shop manager or shop things and that. I looked at people's skill set, I looked at what the shop needed, and that's what created. So like with the trainers, what I needed, some people would rely on that to be the shop manager. I didn't. I didn't want the shop management having anything to do with the training. I wanted them to focus on what was going on in the shop floor. I'd also separate it as well. So I'd have a front of house team and a salon team. So my shop manager would be like my team captain. Yeah. So they would be there beginning of the day, have a chat with everyone, make sure everyone's in the right mindset, see if someone needs a hug, see if someone needs a bit of work, and we'd work on it. And we'd have individual teams and individual plans and team plans to work on getting that quality to the best we could with zero resources.
Did you find good answer? Did you find you trusting? Because there's a point where you've got managers that you're leaving to it, and trusting them to do essentially what your job is, but their way.
If you don't,
because that's got to be a bit of a that's got to be a growth in there for you. That you're.
I always went along with this, right? I would hate it if people were sort of texting me, should I be doing this, Dan? Should I be doing that, Dan? And it got to the point where I was being bothered like 24/7. I couldn't go for a pint without my fucking phone going off, and it was doing my head in. And I was mentioned this to a mate of mine, and he said, Dan, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And so I put that on the wall, on the shop.
That's
better
a
to ask
lovely
for forgiveness
phrase.
than permission. And like, it didn't create this free-for-all, what a lot of people would think, where it's going to be sort of like everyone just doing what the hell they wanted and then just sorting out at the end. I spoke to the teams what were looking after the shops, and the front of house team would look after that would be different. So like with things like time off, opening the shop, things there, that has to be regimented. That has to be right, because if that's not right, your pyramid's knackered. But in terms of sort of like giving people the power to be able to do something, as long as they're not. The other rule I've got is one from Progress Wrestling, because I love my wrestling. At the beginning of the show, they tell everyone to enjoy, but the number one rule is don't be a dick, right? So it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission and don't be a dick. When you use those two things together, it worked okay, you know? So like people were doing a better about it, thinking about what they were doing and just going for it a little bit and making mistakes and learning from them. We've openly said we've learned more from our mistakes than we have our successes. Most people do. Now, what's going to happen if you try and micromanage someone down to the point where they can't make a mistake? They're going to go. They're going to be bored. They're going to hate working for you. One of the owners I used to work for was such a micromanager to the point where most of his team left, including me. And if he just would have had a pint and pissed off somewhere, his shop would have been amazing, which it was. And then he came back and went a bit micromanagement for whatever reason. That's a prerogative of his shop, don't care. But like, if you got to allow people to do something, and like, if you've got a problem with it, you're quite within your rights to ask them, can you talk to me about this? But you shouldn't come to an assumption of what they've done. You've got to let them show they're working out and say, okay, well, why have you done this? Okay, well, actually, I did something similar. This is the way of it. And then what will happen is people will feel more confident. Your workload will decrease. Their workload will be happy workload, and people will want to come to work.
Yeah. Well, I can't argue with that,
Hopefully.
can I? Love it. We've covered becoming a manager.
Yeah.
We've covered being a consultant.
Yeah.
So to finish, maybe just the wider world at the moment now, where we do seem to be inundated with consultants and offerings and,
don't we just
and so on.
Yeah.
You know, from your point of view, looking at your dealings with the owners, what would be your advice to the owners regarding their relationship with their managers? What would your previous employers been?
Okay.
What would they have benefited from?
What a question.
Giving you that money. Well, it seems like we're coming to an end. This seems like the apex of it all.
Well,
and I'd like to learn this one.
Well, the two things what I was doing as a manager, I wish the owners would have done with me a little bit more. So one, it's sort of like just give people a bit of power and a bit of budget to do what you want. So you've made that person manager for a reason, right? So of course, there's things what you want to be able to achieve, but you have to let that person grow and learn and like ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Like you can't just go straight all in and give them the keys and the accounts and say off you pop. No. But like that, you've got to stage it. What's your timeline? What do you want to be able to achieve out of this person running your shop, right? If it's to completely take over and run the shebang, then what are you going to do in order to put that into place? What is your action plan for this person, right? Talk about that action plan with them. Do they agree with it? If they agree with it, do it. If they don't agree with it, instead of thinking they're the wrong person, have a bit of a look at your stuff, see what's going on and make it right. You know, there's a balance. People learn in different ways. Like most barbers and hairdressers are kinesthetic learners. By that is like we learn by what we're seeing, what we're doing. If we were academic learners, then we probably wouldn't be in hairdressing or barbering to start with. So what you may need to work on is how can we make this person who's very kinesthetic more academic? So like it isn't going to be by giving them a great big book and say, read that and come back to me or do that. It might be sort of like, well, do you know, my mate's got a great shop in Bristol where I could like, it'd be great if he could shadow there for a day and do some things there. Or like, what do we need out of this person? And like, it could genuinely be like, go and have a look at this. I don't know the answer. What do you think we need to do with this? Don't always have the answers ready for them. Listen to what they're going to say. Listen to what they're going to do, and do that with it. So I think the main one is like, we've got two ears and one mouth for a reason. Sometimes we've got to shut our mouths and open our ears and listen to what you've had trust in to take on your shop in the first place. And if you haven't got that trust in them, you've probably done the wrong thing and given them the managerial position. So like, have a plan, stick to your plan. If your plan needs changing, don't be afraid to have a little bit of review of it, see why it's not working. At the moment, like different economics and that sort of thing means different things can happen, of course. But that'd be the main thing. Go along with that and listen. And obviously, you've got a team around you, you've got customers around you. Listen to their feedback, because it could be that they're fantastic. These managers are great with the customers, and the customers are loving it, but your staff hate working there. And so, when you're sort of trying in management so hard to please, sometimes these things get blurred, and sometimes things get missed.
Yeah.
Shops get missed. Like they could be working on the best shop, which probably doesn't need any working on, where then the shop what isn't doing so well might need some more help. So it's having that plan, having that look at it, and really, I don't know, back your hunch. You gave that person a role for a reason. Like, do you think that? So before you go and take them on, don't just take on the person who's the busiest person in the shop. Is this person right? What do I want to be able to achieve? Can this person do it for me? If you think they can do a majority of it and you can train the rest, then you got to go with it.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Back your hunch.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Thanks very much, buddy. Really appreciate it. And let's see if we get you back a third time.
Hat trick, yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Noble Barber. If you liked it, please do like and subscribe. If you've got comments of what we should be doing in future, please give us your questions and we'll try and find an expert to talk to. Or if you're the expert and you want to come on here and help, stay in touch, we'll get you on. Come and join us on the sofa.